Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Beatitudes. This is a podcast and a movement for Christian men, and it turns out for women too, walking through authentic fraternity on their way to eternity with Christ. We are so happy to have a live audience. This is only the second time we've done this, third actually, at a conference.
Yep.
But we're gonna involve you later, but first let me introduce you to the crew. My name's Jeff Schiefelbein, I'm one of the Beatitudes. I'm joined by Nick Bezner.
I love roller coasters.
You love roller coasters?
I do.
You're in for one.
Just a fact.
And I got Paul Kolker on my left.
And I like short walks on the beach.
And we are truth, goodness, and beauty. No?
Sounds about right.
All
That's
right.
fair.
Hey, if you've ever seen the Beatitudes, or if you haven't, let me explain something to you. We have been using humor as an access point for conversations that are truly about the things that matter in our life, our walk with Christ, the struggles that we have, the joys, the triumphs, the trials. And in a minute, we're gonna be hearing from one of our awesome guests. He's a returning guest for us. But first, I just wanna let you know that how many in here, real quick, have ever heard or seen the Beatitudes before? Just quick show of hands. Or you can just clap or yell. Okay, we got a couple good ones in here, yeah.
All right.
You're in for what you said, a roller coaster of humor and holiness. What would you say?
Homerness?
Holiness. What about you, Paul?
Loveliness.
Anthony, what is this? What is this show?
It's Catholic, whose line is it anyways?
Catholic, whose line is it anyway? There is some improv. Hey, and before we get into knowing Anthony, you came here today to the Beatitudes, and we are gonna include you in today's show. So if you don't know this, Paul Kolker is actually a trained professional improv comedian.
That's correct.
And we're gonna include you in this show through an improv exercise at the end. But Paul, you wanna explain this to him?
Yeah, so the way this is gonna work is we're gonna be having slips of paper going around. And so if you have pens on you, great. I think we also have some extra pens and all that. But we need you to write down phrases or sentences. These can be words of wisdom, favorite movie quotes, things that you would see on decorations that your mom hangs in the kitchen. I'm just like the deepest, most powerful, impactful phrases. Live, laugh, love might be an example, right? But just don't use
not
that one because we always get that one. But yeah, so if you'll fill those out, we'll have somebody coming around collecting those slips, and then we're gonna use those later in the show. We're gonna continue with the rest of the show as y'all are doing that, but feel free. I believe we got Jake over here with the blue hat on backwards. We got John Heinen over here. He's got the nice, man, look at that. He's dressed to kill. That's
like a
great.
gentleman.
All right.
And then we got Sophie right here too.
Oh,
Sophie,
yes, Sophie's
what's up?
helping. Thank you.
All right, good. Well, listen, on the Beatitudes, we always do this show live, and we're lucky enough to have Anthony D'Ambrosio here. We actually go way back. Who here has heard of the D'Ambrosios? Woo!
Somebody jumping up and
Jumping for joy.
What's up?
And we got a couple people. That's awesome. Love this.
All right, we're gonna share a little bit of a story of Anthony's background, but there is a movie, a feature-length film coming out this year, 2025, called Triumph of the Heart. And it's all about Maximilian Kolbe and the 9 other men that entered into the starvation chamber when Kolbe replaced another prisoner to go to their death and pass through it. And Anthony is the writer and director. He's also our friend and a mentor to the Beatitudes.
A mentor?
Well, you wore your Beatitudes blue and white today. This is incredible. Welcome to the show, Anthony D'Ambrosio. Thanks
Thank
for
you
coming
so much
back.
for having me.
Yeah.
Just a show of hands, who here is named Kolbe or has Kolbe as a confirmation saint? Say woo!
All right.
Yeah, right down front.
We met somebody earlier who has a first-class relic of Maximilian Kolbe. I'm gonna assume that people have some knowledge, but let's take a step back. Who's Maximilian Kolbe first?
Maximilian Kolbe was basically the World War II Bishop Barron. And he was a media star and executive. He started the first Catholic big media conglomerate in Poland, had millions of subscribers to his magazine. But he's really known now for saving the life of another man in Auschwitz, stepping forward and giving his life so that another man who had a family could go free. And he, after that, lived for 14 days without food or water, giving testament through song and poetry and prayer to the goodness of God in the midst of Auschwitz.
So you've been doing this project for a couple of years, but this isn't your first dive into the creative world. Anthony and his brother years ago started a movement called the Catholic Creatives. Can you just take us back to who's little Anthony that would be now leading the charge on this feature-length film about Kolbe? Like, where did you come from?
So I went to seminary at St. John Vianney Seminary in Minnesota, and I left that with a philosophy degree and knew that God was calling me to something else. And as one does, if you graduate seminary with a philosophy degree, I face planted into the adult world with no idea what I was going to do. So I did youth ministry, and during youth ministry realized that we needed stories that could be told of our saints that would show the heroism of our Catholic culture, and that there was just not enough of that in the world. And I saw that one of the big problems was that our faith doesn't really do a great job of sponsoring, promulgating creativity and artistry. We're very great at talking about truth, and we're very good at outreach, but we're not very good at promoting those, people who are a little bit off the beaten path, who do a little bit wonkiness, and who are artists that can tell the truth and goodness of our faith through beauty, through stories. And so I started something called Catholic Creatives, and that's how I got to know you guys.
Yeah, that
Didn't you know
actually turned
Paul
out.
before that? Did you know Paul growing
Oh
up?
yeah, we actually went to youth group together at St.
Yeah.
Anne's in Texas.
And then we went to seminary together.
That's right. We were in seminary at the same time for a couple years there. Discerning at the same time. I think I was in the chapel praying, and you were dressing up like a pirate, I think.
That did happen multiple times. I did have the security of the school get called on me once for running around with PBC noodles, and we were having ninja battles with other people. Ninja
fight,
battles.
yeah.
And they confiscated our pool noodles and said that we were bearing weapons illegally on campus. So you were praying, and I was getting into trouble.
But
Wait, do you have any stories about Paul? I know Paul prayed, but Paul did some other stuff too. Come on.
Well, we called him the Punisher because he made very bad puns.
Still doing that.
Yeah.
Yep. Big fan
The
of puns.
Punisher.
Yes, the Punisher, indeed.
Okay, so you used to be one of us. We're all from DFW. We all go to the same parish. You used to be local to us, and you left us to go to the great state of Colorado.
Denver, Colorado, baby. We got any Denverites out there? We have a few. Yeah, I mean, it's Focus headquarters. Yeah, I know you guys are here. Right?
All 15 of y'all came here. That's great.
Oh, wow. We got 16 from Dallas.
Yeah.
So no, this project though didn't start as a feature-length film. Let's go back to what was happening that ended up being that Kolbe was gonna take over your life and you would be so ingrained with Kolbe. Where did this come from?
So, I guess to get very real, I had a faith crisis while I was doing youth ministry. I had a girlfriend that I felt like God had told me that I was going to get married to. I was giving my life to ministry, and I came down with an illness that was very hard to diagnose. And during that time, one of the things that it caused was chronic insomnia. So I could only sleep for about 20 minutes to an hour a night. And that created this incredible, suffering in my life. And I couldn't hold on to my job. I couldn't do all of the things that I thought that God was calling me to. I ended up having to end the relationship because I couldn't move forward into marriage with this woman that I loved deeply. And in the midst of that grief, I lost my faith in the midst of that because I couldn't see how a good God could allow something like that bad to happen without any real reason to it. And I was gravitating towards this really deep sort of angst and anger against God. And in the midst of that, I started to have these dreams about St. Maximilian Kolbe. And I began to realize that Kolbe entered into the suffering of these 9 other men. There was 9 other men in this starvation bunker that we don't really talk about very often. And we talk often about the way that he saved this life of another man who was able to go free and survive Auschwitz. But there were 9 other men who were starving to death with the saint. And he had to talk with them and be with them in the midst of their grief and their suffering. And in some ways, I felt like I was one of those men. I was cast into this darkness and this cell of suffering that I couldn't get out of. And I didn't know if I would ever be healed. And the conversations that I began to have with Kolbe in this sort of like deep place of suffering and of sleeplessness, that became the grounds for making a short film about St. Maximilian Kolbe that was told from the perspective of one of these 9 other men who is a POW in the camp and who had a love who was at home and was trying to get back to, and who ultimately died with Kolbe. So,
What was the intent of this short film? Like, what was that used for? I actually don't even know. what was happening with this thing.
Yeah, so part of that was that the Diocese of Dallas had hired my company. I started a marketing firm later on, and they hired our company to help them put forward an event that was like a South by Southwest outreach to young adults in Dallas who were not Catholic. And we were talking a lot about the idea that a lot of people were leaving the faith, not necessarily because of the big questions of wokeness that were coming out around then, the big like hot and button political topics, but a lot of them were leaving because they felt like they couldn't ask life's biggest questions in the context of church. And so we brought forward this whole event that was about asking the biggest, most difficult questions of life, of grief, of doubt, of suffering. And we used that short film as a way to start the conversations there. We showed it in a theater in downtown Dallas, and it was like this atomic bomb of spiritual grace went off, and all of these people were going to confession that were distanced from the church. They were coming back. They were having these open conversations that they never thought they could have, of sufferings of people in their lives that had committed suicide, people who had died in their family or gone to prison, things that they would never have talked about before that we were able to share because of this film. And so we knew that we needed to make something that was even bigger to share Kolbe's story with the world.
Well, and I think you had said with Catholic creatives, to kind of jump back to that stage, you wanted to start a new renaissance because that's what the church had helped foster way back when, right? I mean, that was kind of the goal, is that art can evangelize.
I think that one of the biggest problems that we have right now in the church is that we've lost the culture war, and we've been trying to fight it on the terms of the culture through like argumentation and through politics. And really, when we were the strongest, when we were most ourselves, is when we were being sacramental. Like our personality as the church, our inheritance is sacrament. And that means communicating grace through symbol, the symbol that creates the expression of the grace that it signifies. And our art, our beauty is a part of the way that we do that. Our cathedrals and our art has always been the thing that has made us the most ourselves. And we are the most ourselves when we were doing that. And I think that if we were able to create an artistic culture inside of the faith, we would find ourselves ramping back up into the limelight of culture again if we did that. So that's what the new Renaissance is all about.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Here's a question. So you're talking about these 9 other men. What do we know about those men? Did we know about their lives and the details of their backgrounds? Were they all Jews that had been put into the concentration camp? Like, what's the deal with these men?
Yeah, so this is something that a lot of people don't know, is that at the time, Auschwitz, in the very beginning of the war, it was founded to destroy the identity of the Polish culture. Polish culture is, as many of you guys know, very Catholic and very, very nationalistic. They're a country that's been conquered over and over and over and over again. And their resilience as a culture has been the way that they've held on to the cross. And so the way that they were trying to destroy the culture of Poland was by bringing in clergy and the leaders in the church and the leaders in Poland that were political leaders who were also connected to the church to basically dehumanize them. Their goal was to completely rip the humanity away from them, even as they died, not just to kill them and exterminate them, but to do so in the way that was showed them that they had no humanity to begin with. And the goal was to therefore subjugate Poland as a sort of slave state or vassal state of Germany. And so they brought in people like Maximilian Kolbe, who were people who could lead, who were people who had followings, and they brought them all together and basically did everything that they could to make them kill themselves, turn on each other, etc. And so Kolbe's story in stepping forward to save the life of another man, it was not just to save this one man's life, but to remind everyone in Poland that they could not be destroyed, that their identity as humans, as Catholics, could not be destroyed by the oppressors that were coming to take them over.
Yeah, so I remember less than 2 years ago, we hung out with you in Denver up there for some event, and you let us know about that short film. I had never seen it before then. I'm gonna turn to Nick for a second. Nick, do you remember the first time you watched the proof of concept? Like,
Yeah.
Talk to us about what you experienced then and how that helped to catapult where we are now 24 months later.
Yeah, that's right. So saw the short film, and then Anthony's like, hey, I have a script. I was like, let's read it. This is amazing. You know, you go through the story, and I think it's so interesting, your point, right? It's so easy to be like, okay, what about the one guy he saved? But then flip that on its head, and like, it's really about the 9 guys that he suffered with and entering into that suffering. That was so, I think people have this expectation that life is not suffering or that life is supposed to be easy, or if, you know, but it really is. We have that cross, and what does that cross look like? How does, and what I experienced reading the script was how it would apply to anybody who watched the film, right? You can relate in a way because no matter where you're at in your life, in your journey, you've got a cross, right? Rich, poor, you know, any demographic, you're gonna have some way that this relates and speaks to you. And I thought that was the power of the story.
Yeah, it's one thing that I think that our greatest artists have always had a lot of darkness in their art, which is kind of interesting. But like you think about Caravaggio and some of the greatest pieces of work that we've seen, it's like all darkness and then this like brilliant light highlighting the person of the gospel. You see this in the great depiction of the prodigal son coming home and embracing the father. And these sorts of art that were made at that point, we as Catholics, we were looking at the darkness and seeing how the light of Christ could shine through it. In our film, one of the things that I really wanted to show was that all of these men who were in the cell with Kolbe, these were people who were just like us, who had lives, who had families at home, they had dreams, they had whole stories that brought them to that point that got cut short in the most brutal, terrifying, and horrible way that you could imagine. And God sent somebody like Maximilian Kolbe, a saint, to be with them in the midst of their suffering. And for me, it makes me like tear up every time that I think about it, knowing that they were not alone in the suffering that they went through. It's also a testament to the fact that we are not alone in our own darknesses, and that it gives us the chance to be able to share about those things and testify to God's goodness in the midst of our suffering.
Well, and that's the other thing. Like the darkness, I think sometimes can scare people away. This is an intense film, right? This is not sunshine. We know how this ends, right? It's not necessarily a happy ending, but it is a very joyful ending. And I think that's the thing. It's like the triumph of the heart, right?
Right.
Yeah, so you know, here, I gotta tell you what happened next. And there's a great faithfulness, but all creatives have this like, I'm just gonna make this up, but almost like a fraud complex, like, is anybody gonna like this? And so we watched this thing. By the way, Paul's voice was in the very first one as one of the Germans coming in and
that's right.
roughing up the...
Yeah, I said I'd like to participate in this film, and you were like, how about as a German
Nazi.
soldier?
Yeah.
Nazi. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
That's a clip.
Yeah.
So then what was so wild is we said, can we help with this? We literally wrote an email to 50 people, held a couple events with friends in town, and next thing you know, whoops, you had all the money you needed to jump on an airplane and fly to Poland one way?
Yeah.
What happened next, man?
Well, so it's really interesting because we needed enough money to buy a house, but without any real like, here's what that's gonna do. We had a movie and we had a movie idea, we had a script, and we were like, hey, we need half a house. We need a whole house. We need like $400,000 to be able to get out there and do this. And all of you guys helped us to raise that. It came so much faster than I thought that it would come. And all of a sudden I was like, I guess I have to do this now.
And the Holy Spirit nudged you.
Yeah.
You're pot committed.
Yeah. It was like, oh, wow, oh my gosh, this is commitment. So we had enough to get out there. We bought one-way tickets to Poland because we knew that we needed to make the movie in Kolbe's hometown. And we had to find actors, and we had to find locations, we had to find costumes, all of these things to be able to create a film. And in the midst of that, we had these big shoots where we had to recreate Auschwitz, hundreds of people that were in town for these days, and we had a freak snow that happened. It was in the middle of September. It's not a time that it snows normally in Poland. We were like, what's the worst that could possibly happen? And it would be that snow would come down during those 2 days.
Wait, real quick, you've never heard a grown man cry on the phone like Anthony when the snow was coming.
Oh, come on, Jeff. It was a few tears. I had onions that I was chopping while we were talking.
That's what it was, definitely.
But yeah, basically, as the snow happened, it meant that we needed to raise another $50,000 in order to reschedule hundreds of people, closed down the city streets, all of that, that we had to do in order to be able to reshoot these couple of days. And there were lots of other things that happened like that we needed God's intervention directly to get through. And you guys were big helps to me as I was facing the cliff that I was like standing on, looking down like, there's no way that I can pull this off. And as one does, God always brings people into your life that can help you, kind of encourage you through it. And Jeff made a couple of phone calls and was like, I got you the money. Let's make this happen. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Do you know, I think about this film because the story of these men, you have these firsthand accounts of what people could hear from the cells or the janitor coming in. There was a camaraderie formed. There was a fraternity formed. They were in this together instead of turning on one another. But my question is this: you were not filming in easy conditions. You didn't have the luxury of a Hollywood lot. You didn't have a lot of things. What was it like for the crew, for the actors, for the locals to experience the making of this?
I mean, you think about what a movie has to do. It's trying to recreate these moments of real life. And the closer you can get to the reality, the more real it seems. And God, in some way, I think, always creates a space when you're trying to give your life to him as an artist. He makes you relive the thing that he wants you to learn through the course of making the thing. And for us, that meant we didn't have enough money in order to do any of what we were trying to do. I had people who looked at the script and they were like, you need at least $2 million to do this. And we were trying to do it for $400,000. And what that meant for us was that we were living in hostels where it was just, literally there was not even a kitchen. We had 100 people packed into a room where all we had were cots. Like no sofas, one bathroom, and we've got 100 people in this place. And all of us were in some way living joyfully in the midst of all of that poverty. And we were learning what Kolbe had to learn. You know, he was a missionary that was very accustomed to suffering. He went to Japan. Like, think about this. Speaking Polish, which is one of the hardest languages ever in the history of the world to learn. It's got like 10 consonants in it per sound. So you think about like, what is the sound that CZH SP make when you're reading a letter? Like, it's amazing. And yeah, exactly.
Did then you go,
right? This guy is like, I'm going to go to Japan, which is the second hardest language to learn, and I'm going to translate my Polish newspaper without Google Translate into Japanese. And I'm gonna do that with no money and like 3 other Franciscan friars in one of the most hostile environments to Christianity that the world knows. And so he knew what it was like to be on mission with other people suffering with him. And that's what we got to learn. We had to, literally, the actors had to starve to death together. We had to be on an Auschwitz starvation, less than 1,000 calories per day diet in order to get down slim enough to be believable. So we would do that. Even I would do the diet with them. We had to shave all of the hair off of our heads and kind of enter into that sort of militaristic, dehumanized, like our personalities all blending together kind of sense. We were in a prison that was damp and dark, that had no AC for October, November, being like, acting out these incredibly terrifying, difficult, like scenes together all day, every day. And so that, you would think it would create this incredibly intense, heavy culture, but it was the opposite. At the end of the day, after we just are coming back and we don't even have enough money for dinner and we're just eating soup, and we're coming back home just like singing Disney songs and like having the best time of our lives. So that's what it was like.
People think, oh, you're making a movie, so that's so glamorous, right?
Yeah. Luxury Hollywood lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got the trailer where we got, all the fun stuff and like snacks. Nope.
Gotta go to makeup.
We could not afford any of that.
Nope.
Literally, we were across the street from a mall in this old prison that had no power, and we had to run one extension cable all the way across the parking lot to plug in, and we couldn't have the light and we had a little space heater that was like, that's the one heater we have. So like any time that we finished a scene and said cut, we had to like unplug the light and plug the space heater back in and get blankets over the guys so that people would like not get sick. So those are the conditions we were working in.
It's like method acting turned into method producing. We're just
Yeah,
going to raise
that's
just
right.
enough money to keep you alive.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But these are the sort of sacrifices, that you have to make if you want to do something for the Lord that is like absolutely unique, that's never been done before, that's completely off the beaten path. I think God wants you to be like without enough to be able to prove that he's the one behind it. That's just, you see the story of God's work throughout the Old Testament. It's always the little guy that doesn't have enough that God uses to turn the tables on, the culture.
Yeah, David and Goliath, or in my weakness, he is made strong.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Story of Gideon,
Your
Yeah.
first film ever to make of long form, and you decided to do it in Poland.
Yeah.
What have you learned or been surprised? Like, what are the surprises, good and bad, that have come to you over this last 24 months?
I would say that one of the biggest surprises is just that when you have a dream and you have something on your heart that God is giving to you, God will give you the resources that you need, no matter how impossible it is, if you step forward in faith. And that, to me, has been the biggest surprise. I think how kind of small my brain was when I was first thinking about the film. I was like, can we do this for maybe like $250,000 in Dallas? We can find a little thing that we can. It's like God kept on stretching the dream over and over and over and over again, because I was still immature in my faith, where I couldn't dream as big as God was dreaming. And I think that has been the biggest lesson that God has taught me.
Walk on the water.
Yeah.
Get out of the boat.
See with the eyes of the Lord. There's a lot more abundance in his camp than there is in mine. And I just have to be able to look at the world around me through the eyes of the kingdom and not through my own eyes.
Anthony, is it fair to say like what you went through physically and then your spiritual crisis and then finding Kolbe and locking into the Kolbe story? It's kind of two-part question here. Number one, how much of this movie is actually about your walk with Kolbe when I think about being one of the 9 in that cell? And I would also then say, how much do you see that Kolbe took that leap of faith that you took over and over with printing presses and moves and new communities?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Like every saint, you hear their story, and that story is almost always a snapshot of their life, like the ending snapshot that's like, the harvesting of their life. But before that, there's all of these moments in silence, in the secret of God bringing that person forward just one little step in faith. And my story is very much tied to the story that I'm telling. Like God saved me the same way that Kolbe saved these other men through this story, through bringing me into this story and showing me what it looks like to suffer well. And I would say that my life is at this stage is so deeply formed by it that it feels like Kolbe met me in my cell, and I have therefore been ministered to by him, and I'm now giving out of what Kolbe gave me. Like I was discipled in some way by him.
I got to tell you, this is getting heavy, so I would like to lighten it up with a little game.
Let's do it.
The game is called Blessed Are the Joke Makers, for they shall inherit the 102 points. It's a big one.
102 points. How does this work, Paul?
The way this is going to work is we've got a character card and a card from the Catholic card game, and we're going to answer the prompt on the Catholic card game as this character. So we have to just try to make this work in the moment. We're going to come up with it, and the character we have to become.
Wait, so real quick, each one of us is going to go.
Oh, yeah, we're going to each do
But
our
Anthony,
own
are you
version.
playing or are you going to judge?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm so into it. Yeah,
All right.
I'm
All
playing.
right, we actually need y'all at the end by show of applause, which is that how they say it, a show of applause?
A round
of applause?
Yeah, a
Yes.
show of your hands. Who won? So we'll go through this, and literally this is improv. We don't know what's coming out next, so
Here
go
we
for it.
So, as a person who is stuck in the decade of your choice, the topic of the next papal encyclical is
You can't think this long. You got to dive in. Here's mine. All right, stop. Substantiate and listen. I got nothing. I'm going Ice Ice Baby.
I would say stuck in the 60s that, it'd be fides et ratio. I think it really dives into both the faith and the reason. And when you put those two together, it's kind of mind-blowing, bro.
Bro, what Latin did you just use?
Faith and reason. Fides et it's actual Latin, bro.
In a very distant future, the most recent encyclical is Ad Hominem, about whether or not zombies are men and whether or not they should be protected under sacramental law.
Oh.
Hey, welcome to the juice joint. You know, the next papal encyclical is going to be about whether everybody should be carrying a Tommy gun.
All right, real quick show of hands. Skip me, Paul. Yeah?
I got 5s of applause.
Anthony?
That's great.
Nothing.
Got some, Nick?
Nick takes
Nick
it.
takes the
All right.
102 points. Congratulations. Tune into the Beatitudes every Monday for the Blessed are the Joke Makers, and on Friday we have our bonus shows. Anthony, I have a question. We know that the younger generations, between the smartphones and the social media and the crazy things going on in the world, that there is a level of anxiety, there's a level of frustration, a level of depression. You've been to some of those dark places. I'd ask you right now just to talk to the people that are here and the people that are gonna listen to this. Like, what's your advice after having gone through, I know all of us have a dark day, but you went through some dark nights. Like, talk to us about what is your advice to folks when they face this?
One of the things that I found to be most difficult was how hard it was for other people to understand what I was going through. The isolation that comes from not being able to fully explain how difficult of a grief it is. And people were coming to me all the time trying to make everything make sense. You know, maybe God is trying to teach you this lesson, or, you know, God is going to make something beautiful out of this. And that sort of thing was always like nails on a chalkboard for me as a Catholic.
Yeah.
And in the midst of my doubt, as I was trying to sort of express the anger that I had with God, I was becoming distant from my own family because I couldn't fully express how different of a life I was living compared to the life that they were on. And I think that what I needed to do, and the best advice that was given to me, was just to like let go of my resentment and listen to the voice of love that was inside of me. That was ultimately God's voice. But I had so many layers of like anger against what God was saying to me and against what other people were saying to me, that I couldn't listen to that voice of love that was inside, that was God's voice witnessing my suffering and having compassion for me. So I would just say that, like,
That's
let go
awesome.
of the resentment and listen to the voice of love that's inside of you.
Man, what if you're on the other side of this? You know your buddy or your friend or your even coworkers going through something. You got a lot of people that gave you advice that was making it go deeper and worse. What would you say to any of us that are here trying to walk with a friend?
Being with someone in silence is way more powerful than trying to make it make sense. And I think that the worst instinct that we have is when we're confronted with the sort of suffering that other people have that feels like it's senseless. There's almost like a defensiveness that we have against it, that we want to somehow reconcile it and try to make sense of it. Like, there's gotta be a reason why. And if you try to bring that energy into the conversation, it's going to ultimately fall flat, because a lot of suffering God doesn't give that to people intentionally. Like, God brings us into places of suffering and he uses it, but he doesn't cause it. He doesn't, like, as a chess player, like, here's the suffering that I'm going to give to this person that's going to be their grief and their cross to carry. And if we try to bring that to it, it's going to really be, I think, ultimately senseless to that person and drive them further away from God. Because I think all of us know deep down, a good God would not do that. Yeah.
So what you're saying is just being there with the person versus trying to define or label or categorize or solve
That's right.
the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
we
a
try to help
compassionate-
and like, let me fix that for you. And it's like, no, sometimes you just need to listen or
Let me
be.
change how you're thinking about this. It's like, no, just like hold them. Let them be in doubt, let them be angry with God, and just be with them in the midst of that. And that's really what this movie shows Kolbe doing for the 9 other men.
Man, it's funny. I was thinking about if somebody's in this struggle, my anecdote is, do you want to go see a movie with me? Because this is a great one. Now, when are people going to be able to see this in theaters?
It will be in theaters in September or October. We haven't nailed down the date yet exactly, but before that, if you want to help us, we are doing screenings, hopefully in the top 50 cities that will be places where we want to release the movie. So if you want to make sure the movie comes to your city, reach out to me. You can find us on www.triumphoftheheart.com. You can find us on Instagram at Triumph of the Heart. And you can basically put your name forward to be somebody that helps us bring the movie to your city. So
Thanks for putting those W's in the website. I'm Gen X, and we don't know how that works without the W's. So thank you for...
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
HTTPS :
Right.
Thanks. Well, listen, you guys, you contributed something that we're going to have a little bit of fun with. And
we've got our notes.
Yeah, we do.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the man in this coat who just handed... Stop for a second. Stay up here. This is John Heinen, also known as the Catholic Gentleman. And today he is a courier service for your suggestions. John, thank you so much. John can be found on podcasts and things everywhere.
I always feel underdressed when he's around.
Well, he's a gentleman.
Yeah, we're just a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, but the Catholic Gentleman is actually a singular brand. It's M-A-N, right? Yeah, we're dudes. We're in community. All right, I'm not going to look at these. We're going to start passing these out. Okay. But don't look at them just yet. This is for the game in a minute. I'll kind of separate these out for you. Anthony, what is your favorite thing about the Beatitudes?
I love the humor. I think that you guys are bringing something really unique to the Catholic podcasting world. And I love that everything that you guys do is like this very masculine kind of like bros talking together and
don't look at them.
Making sure that everything is as lighthearted and fun.
Well, this show hasn't been funny yet.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about death and depression
but the triumph.
Hey, the triumph.
The triumph of the heart.
That's right.
This is a near occasion of comedy.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so Paul's gonna set the scene for us. Now listen, Paul does this as a professional.
Yeah.
So don't judge us, judge him.
Thank you, Jeff, for that. All right, so what's gonna happen here is we're flashing forward now. So it's September or October later this year when we're actually at the premiere of Triumph of the Heart. We're all on the red carpet. We're gonna be interviewing Anthony there, all right? So flash forward with us, but we have to fit your sayings into what we are asking him and what we're reflecting on about the movie. And we're gonna try to make it make sense. So it's gonna be a beautiful mess. We'll figure it out.
The scene starts as we're exiting the limo, having gotten an awesome opportunity to ride there with Anthony.
Anthony, I'm just so proud of you, man. Like, I can't believe you have gotten to this point.
Yes.
You did it. You brought yourself here, and all you had to do was on a daily basis remind yourself, suck it up, Buttercup.
That's right.
That's right. Suck it up, Buttercup, every day. That's what I said.
When you would call me from Poland, you were like, but Jeff, I know that's what you're gonna say, so I'll just say it for you. Suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah, you were crying profusely.
I mean, this was my favorite quote from Kolbe was suck it up, Buttercup.
It's the translation from Polish.
In Polish, right.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's funny because my favorite quote from any saint was actually, I don't even remember the saint, but it's this one that I have on my bathroom mirror. It says, don't ask for answers. What does this say?
And this is where Jeff's dyslexia
Yeah,
kicks in.
that was my favorite quote from that saint too. That unnamed saint and unnamed quote.
Just don't ask for answers. Like, it's not gonna do you any good.
It's not gonna happen.
For sure.
Yeah. But it was funny, yeah.
I mean, I remember being on the phone with you, Jeff, and the thing that you said to me that was like perhaps the most impactful thing that got me through the dark night of the soul was, they may take our lives, but they will never take our freedom!
And look what happened from there.
It's the triumph of the brave heart.
Right.
Perfect.
And that's how we got to the red carpet. You know, I've always heard insiders in Hollywood, they would just like, hey, when you get to the red carpet, make sure that you speak softly and carry a big stick.
Right, and that's
that way
why
the reporters have to lean in.
Well, yeah,
that's
you
right.
You want to draw them into your message.
And the big stick, to me, when I saw you get to the red carpet, it's that big stick you're using as a cane. And so I think that's perfect for you.
That's right. Dressing as a dapper dandy, walking around with the tux and...
It's funny though, because Nick was doing all this spreadsheet work. He helped to create the pro forma and all the financials behind the film, and I would look over his shoulder and I'd say, Nick, what are you doing? And he'd say, Jeff, this is really high-end stuff. Just remember, fake it till you make it. I was like,
Which is kind of what you do.
and then I took over and I wrote a couple of Excel functions.
That's great.
We lost a lot of money that day.
They didn't work, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I love that there was that scene in the movie that nobody saw coming. I mean, and the whole theme of it was really centered around the words, "A faint heart never won a fair lady."
Nope.
Right. You know, the deep romance that was happening in the movie, you know, it's probably the most heartbreaking part of the whole story. And I think that, you know, one of the things that I was really meditating on when I was writing that part was that Cameron que se duerme se lo lleva la corriente.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Spanish is a pretty common language in
Poland, yeah,
Right.
I've heard
Yeah.
that. I've never
everybody in
been,
Poland
but
speaks
I've
Spanish.
heard that's
Right.
Yeah.
very common, very
Yeah.
common.
No, that's incredible. That's incredible. I think that roughly translates to Irish dancing.
Yeah. No, I mean, you think about the way, because he wouldn't just say it, he started singing it to us. And you had those mariachis in Poland.
Right.
And then they did Irish dancing. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like a whole melting pot.
Multicultural,
Well,
which,
it-
you know,
it-
that...
it- yeah.
That is really what Pope Francis was writing about when he said that on Wednesdays we wear pink.
On Wednesdays we were
Well, that's
pink,
when he has
yeah.
the Wednesday
Yeah.
audiences, and so that's appropriate, especially on Gaudete Sunday.
Or
which
Gaudete
is not a
Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah.
Anthony, I actually was able to make a couple phone calls, and I got a couple of the biggest media outlets to come here. And they said, this is a Catholic film. Like, we don't do this. This is for you guys and you Christian guys. What can you tell us that could possibly change our minds? And I said, look, ma'am, I should warn you. I have the authority to make a citizen's arrest. And they were like,
And so you
"Dude."
arrested them.
Well, yeah, they were like, no, we got it. We didn't even know you understood those rules.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I'm just,
they all came.
I'm just
They're
glad
here.
we got to watch the director's cut. That just reminds me of that deleted scene where Kolbe was like, I feel the need for speed.
He
Right.
wanted
Yes.
to get to the 14 days faster.
Faster, speed this up.
That's a dark joke.
What it was.
It's a dark
Yeah.
joke.
Well, I know to kind of wrap this up, Paul had a couple.
Yeah. Well, it's just I saw the early headlines for what the reviews are going to say. I mean, they're going to publish them tomorrow and try to,
Oh.
promote the show.
Gosh, you're an insider.
Yeah, no, I get around and I hear some things, and what they said was the headline is going to be somebody with serial killer handwriting here. Oh, wait, here we go. Why did the striped shirt guy do burpees before the show?
They
That's
are
an-
asking that everywhere.
That
Yeah.
couldn't be a more specific and honest headline.
I mean, specifically for you as
I
well.
feel like that was really personally targeted.
It was, in fact.
Hey,
because-
but that was on the conservative side. I looked on the other side.
Oh,
of
yeah?
the
What'd they say?
headlines. Why is Gomorrah? I mean,
Why
that's
is
a great
Gomorrah?
question.
Why
after Kolbe
is
was-
Why?
Gomorrah a thing?
Why?
Yeah.
I think the answer to that, we all know, is this Ken's Mojo Doja Casa House.
Oh man, I did not see that coming. That the media would pick up on that because it was like an undertone
It's so subtle. So
to the
subtle.
entire thing.
Right.
Well, goodness, I feel like we're in a state of something right now, and that's probably where we're gonna call it a day. Listen, everybody, you can go to www.
HTTPS.
Period.
Yeah.
I also have I have a challenge for everybody that's here.
Oh, let's hear the
Oh,
challenge.
yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that we're doing, Maximilian Kolbe, he was able to sacrifice a lot. He was able to live for 14 days without food or water. And so just to give everybody a little bit of a taste of his ascetic life, we are doing a plank challenge where you can plank. We get 4 people, guys or girls, to get together and plank for as long as you can. And the winners will get to be picked up in a limo for a VIP screening of the movie, not tomorrow, but the next day. And they're over there. So any place that you see these striped shirts and this little cutout with Maximilian Kolbe, you can get your plank
Look,
in.
it's the producer.
Yeah.
Hi, Cecilia.
Hi, Cecilia.
You can get your plank in, and if you plank for long enough, then we will get to share the movie with you guys.
I thought this was just a cool shirt you had. She has the same shirt.
Yeah, you got a whole uniform.
Oh my goodness. What do we have to do to get a shirt? Planks?
That will also be, that's a next step up from the planks.
Okay.
That's a burpee challenge.
Burpee challenge.
Love it.
All right, listen, you can check out, I never got through the website.
triumphoftheheart.com.
That's the website. You can go there. Hey, and also for being an awesome guest, I sat on a pair of socks. These are yours. They're the new St. Michael the
Michael's.
Archangel socks for
By
you, my friend.
Sacrilegious. Here we go. St. Michael the Archangel.
All right,
for you.
Beatitudes
Oh my
every
gosh.
Monday and Friday. Thank you to Max Studios, to Kyle Hyman, his whole crew. We love you guys. Hey, listen, we are going to see you at the premiere of Triumph of the Heart, and for the rest of you, we will.
See you in the Eucharist.
God
See you at
bless
the
ya.
Eucharist.
Thanks for listening to this episode recorded live at Seek. Missed the conference or want to relive your favorite moments? Seek Replay has you covered. Access powerful keynotes, inspiring talks, and exclusive content to take your faith deeper anytime, anywhere. Head to seek.focus.org/replay to download now. And don't forget to join us for Seek 26. Check out seek.focus.org for more information and to register.